So good evening. My name is Vijay Kowtha. I have been involved in learning Vedic science since childhood. My father and my grandfather helped me, guide me while even living in America. I did my science in America, learned engineering and mathematics in New York City, and moved to Washington. 30 years at Sigma Xi, the Science and Engineering Honor Society, and I have retired and now work in a nonprofit called MASER in Lanham, Maryland. We have the Siva Vishnu Temple locally and Murugan Temple. We have about 7 temples in the area. So I volunteer in cultural activities and give lectures there. The talk today, as a Rotarian, I'm in the environmental sustainability, is about ancient practices for sustainable corn development in the Andean Mountain Regions of South America, and hopefully provide new outlook in agriculture and in old traditions. So I'm going to go through what I will be presenting in a way that hopefully will involve things that I do from Sigma Xi, from the IEEE that I belong to, the technical societies, and hopefully bring Vedic philosophy in what we do in our goal. So the aim of the presentation is to hopefully introduce the traditional belief in agriculture, move to the paradigm shift for the future growth, and of course, talk why I'm doing this, the objective to get information to the community, and hopefully bring the agricultural revolution that's going to be down from the historical perspective and the changes that we need to do. Of course, we have to change within us, the cultural change, and hopefully I'll be discussing some of this new wisdom, and finally summarize the ways forward. For example, we have activities coming up in the Rotary for environmental sustainability and youth and getting engagement throughout. So again, I'm involving the IEEE, the society that I belong to. So we have a huge environmental sustainability program, and Sigma Xi, the Science and Engineering Honor Society, with the Vedic thoughts that my parents and my grandparents had instilled in me. So I'm going to start with the introduction of where we came from the Hinduism perspective. According to the scholars, the whole earth belonged to Manu. That's the Vedic period. South America belongs to Manu based on the Bhagavad Puran. The Manu's second son, Priyavata, traveled the whole earth. His chariot scratched the entire earth, his kingdom, into 7 seas. We call the Dvipas, 7 Dvipas. In the US, our Hindu priests call US as Krauncha Dvipa. And of course, I'm going to be talking about support comes from the local beliefs from Central America, which is next to us in America, Mexico, the Mayans. And we think their origination from the Nagas. And from South America, the Andean and the others, the Inca and the Aztec with the sun god, which I will be describing. And then, of course, when you go to Chile and Easter Islands and Peru, we learn a lot more. And of course, this is from the 16th, in the Bhagavad Puran, 5th skanda, 16th adhyaya, and 2nd canto. Again, this is the 7th Dvipas. We will be focusing on the Central South America. Again, the Easter Islands that I would love for people to go visit. It's in Asia, but it's in South America. So it's in the Pacific Islands that Chile owns. And then, of course, when you look at these Mayan agroforestry that had shown in the first slide of agroforestry in the Mayan, you have the sun god with that delineation with the pictures of the sun gods that with the 2 snakes that abounded. Again, depiction of the Nagas as the origins. So again, bringing the cultural evolution from the traditional belief and provide human development and progressive innovation. For example, food production evolved independently based on the surroundings and human migration, which was the necessity. So if you look at the Rig Veda, so the grains, the Navadhanyas that we know and learn about are what was Ravi in the case of Yajurveda, available as necessity in the environment. Corn, on the other hand, is called a European maize from the wild grasses around 7,000 to 10,000 years ago. They claim it's from central Mexico, but it went to the South American Andean region around 4,000 years ago as human migrated downwards. Here, the natives were experimenting on beans, maize, potatoes, and quinoa. So it's all local entities that we call the three sisters in America, in the American lifestyle, things that grow locally, the beans, the maize, and again, the sunflower, the wildflowers that bring in what is unique to the Americas, the Kowtha Vijayanand. The result is the production of varieties of color, shape, and yield. Of course, as we know, that maize was not unique to in India. It was introduced in the 16th century by the Portuguese, following the trade routes that Vasco da Gama through the Arabs came to the south of India. So maize was introduced in the southern hinterlands. But again, these are cultural, traditional beliefs, not Brahma's creation, but what of Vishwamitra, again, looking down on Agastya being in the south, how they learned about the practices there. So again, is it about Brahma? Is it about Vishwamitra? We can have discussions on it. But again, the aim is that over time, necessity forced evolution and creativity. And again, the maize production, the corn, the agroforestry that you see in the Mayans is unbelievable that we can learn from. And over time, you can take the two examples of the corn and the potatoes. The potatoes come in various formats. In Idaho, that's the staple in America. We have a potato that weighs around 150 pounds, one potato. And so these are the various colors over time that have changed. And the corn itself has, again, multifloral displays. Again, this is a wild grass on the top that's described here. And then, of course, over the archaic ages, that how it has evolved. It's a story that we all need to learn and educate our youngsters as they learn where the necessities come from. So potatoes, corn are the staple food in the Kowtha Dvipa and the south. And it's now, I guess, the major entity throughout. So these are what you call superfoods that, as nutritionists have seen, they can add to for engage in what fortification that would need for a daily caloric output. But these are discussions that we can have to make sure that people are comfortable with what they have. But over time, these have evolved. So again, the traditional belief of agriculture is the land is the first requirement of farming, and burnt forest grounds are converted into farming. Identify suitable requirements for farming, result first crop returns that would be unusable because of the lack of nutrients. So again, composting, all of it, the Aryans, the agroforestry that the Mayans did, we can learn from them. The change of the sequence of crops, of changing the expense of a regular crop, the old wisdom of social conservatism has been changed as a paradigm shift for future growth. So again, the subsistence farming with the farming implements changed, with composting providing the nutrients that needed in the ground, have been evolving over time, and the Mayans have learned it. And the Scientific American paper that's on the title describes it from for generations, how they have evolved to make sure that it's sustainable. So the objective of this presentation is to provide this vision for possible new adaptation for agricultural advancements in the Andean regions to other areas. So from that burn till the ground to how we can overcome the loss of civilizations, like what happened when the Saraswati River died up and the end of the Indus Valley civilization. How did these natural obstacles by nature, the Andean mountains, provided them wall for clouds, creating ways to grow, and the wisdom that they had to improve the new farming lands, new ways of cultivating, and of course, pushing the envelope of what are the new areas. So if you go to Easter Islands, and if you look at the map of how they have moved on, sea farming, arid land, like what they have done in the Middle East, desert cultivation, space farming in the futuristic domains, as we go away from our Mother Earth to Mars and the moon, we need to come up with creative ways of taking these necessities that we need with us away from the 9 Navadhanyas that we have been used to. So changing the cultural from social conservatism, we need to modify farming technology, energized with additives, not a new invention. We need to take burnt ash, enriches carbon and ash minerals. The new approaches from the Inca ancestors explore new innovations that provide development of resilient breeds of seeds, enrich the soil with ways that we can do with synthetic nutrients, and of course, ground conservation are the areas that we can explore new areas of farming in free form, in artificial space, and of course, subsistence farming that we can push on. So the paradigm shift in the farming from the old culture includes rulemaking that are easy, that we can learn from. The acceptance from the people that we would is slow, it takes time, but we need to use resources that we have to reduce this transition. And of course, we need to have ethics to cover us as violations are bound to occur. Farming related violations are lack of confidence in science and scientific methodologies. So we have these technical societies. I belong to the Washington Academy of Sciences. We always have ethics, and we have discussions that we allow for mistakes, that we can educate so that people can be prepared and for the changes as they come. Especially in this day and age of climate change, we have this new culture causing these new steps, recognition of pressure from the environment to make these changes that are going to be impugned on us by the next generations. So this paradigm of shift of farming with what we have learned in the good old Vedic traditions are some things that we need to push. For example, in this depiction from the Cambodian painting of Samudra Madhana by Devas and Rakshasas, seabed farming, that's something that's the Japanese are amazing at. They're using successful ways of tapping sea wealth. And of course, our ancient teachers foretold us of what was happening. So doing the sea culture is challenging, but it's heavily rewarding. It's not just the fruits from the sea, but also amazing nutrients that we can potentially tap. So these are full potentials that can be yet to be explored. These are the areas that we will be pushing. And of course, these new areas for soil enrichment are being carried out in research centers and field trials. And of course, how do we enrich the ground soil for carbon? And how do you do sequestration? And how do you build benign organic derivatives to help? The ground complexity, the water tables, reversing desertifications are important, providing vertical stacks for holdouts on the plants and nourish the plant's roots directly. Israel is the leader in the desert cultivation. They have made miracles in Hanaya and all these that they have captured from the Golan Heights and built an amazing resource that if they can do it with these technologies for desert cultivation, we should be able to do it in others. Of course, industry from its own has provided us the way forward with small uh, aquaculture to, again, commercial entities, startups like Garden. You can get green and organic growth in volume that would sustain habitats. Again, water, habitable underwater enclosures, artificial light for successful photosynthesis are ways to go. And of course, the medical and other benefits from the sea plants, where the Japanese are leaders. Most important are we need to educate and overcome the old taboos on the consumption of sea-based plant foods. And our children will be telling us, and they have it right. And we have to get that into our discussion at all levels. So I have given some ideas of doing the changes in agriculture. The most pop is the population growth, the desertification, land, and natural limitations, what Andes is like. But using new technologies, they have accomplished successes that we can learn from. Some of the ideas and visions must include the past wisdom in agriculture, recognize the requirements and resilience to changing environment and reorganize the approaches. Explore alternative land-based approaches to include reverse engineering the arid and desert landscape into new innovations and overcome the traditionalists on new approaches of farming to overcome the stubborn taboos that we have in our daily life. So the opportunities exist, innovative research, carbon enrichment, incentives for adaptation. Again, we have seen this with COVID. We have come up with new ways of feeding the hungry, and there have been unbelievable success stories that are sprouting up all over. But the issues are that this soil-free farming, acceptance of these ideas of when we are seeing disappearing farmland and reorganizing the approaches to develop new test plants, directly providing the nourishment and requirement and focusing on things that really provide energy like quinoa, that should be our staple, and these amazing potatoes that we would not use, but we need to move to that. Of course, provide this research initiatives in social science and, and educate the old traditionalists to accept the new approaches to farming. So as we celebrate 100 years of STEM in Washington, Environmental Summit, we do food recovery, we do activities for the environment, and we do this on a basis to provide ways to engage our youth and prepare them for the food recovery with using AI and other techniques. That's what we do here. And I belong to the Washington Academy of Sciences as we celebrate an IEEE 100th anniversary of STEM to push the envelope of what would be food deserts in 2049 in space and other environments that we will be cohabitating and learning to grow in these reduced environments. So hope there will be a lot of discussion, and I'm here to engage from the Hindu form, but on engaging with the youth on what is to come. And hopefully they would be our young leaders pushing us for change. Thank you.